I've had appendicitis. That's right, guys. The reason I haven't posted in 2 weeks, the reason I've been away from keyboard AFK for the last 2 weeks is because I've been really unwell. Yeah, I got appendicitis. I've been off work for just over 2 weeks now, and I've felt absolutely shit. So I'll do a little brief recap on what happened, the kind of series of events that led up to me getting appendicitis, and then kind of what I've been doing since I've had appendicitis. Like, what have I been doing for the last 2 weeks? Rest, predominantly, but also what life changes have occurred since having appendicitis that I've had to make in order to make sure that my body, my gut, my bowel, my whatever is healthy and able to process the infection which is going on inside me. So let me take you back to where it started. 2 weeks ago, I went into work on the Tuesday, I worked a full day shift, and I felt absolutely fine. Then Jenny, my girlfriend, picked me up from work, and we decided to go for 1 pint. Like, I felt absolutely fine. I'd had a good day at work, and she picked me up from work, and we were like, let's go for a beer. Like, you know, like I normally do once or twice a week. I go and have a beer. So I went to Brewdog in Bournemouth, and I had 2 half pints. That's what I had. I had 2 half pints, and me and Jenny shared this like platter that had like chicken wings and cauliflower wings and chips and just like little sharing platter. It was great. And then literally the moment I left Brewdog, like I remember leaving Brewdog and like swallowing. I know that sounds weird, but I swallowed, and I was like, oh, my throat feels a little bit like sensitive. And literally it had come on within like an hour of me leaving work to leaving Brewdog. My throat was sore. I got home and started to feel progressively worse. I had a bath that made me feel really shit. And then got into bed and was feeling really crap. My throat was really sore. I was feeling really sensitive to touch. Like, I just wasn't well. But I thought, I've got work tomorrow. I'll sleep it off. I'll be fine. I was not fine. So I went to sleep and then had what is arguably the worst night's sleep I have ever had in my entire life. I woke up at about 1:30 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I'm not entirely sure of the time. I was absolutely drenched in sweat but freezing cold. I was hallucinating. I was like making up things in my head. I was panicking. I was anxious. I was like literally just rolling around in bed, unable to get comfortable, unable to stay asleep for what felt like more than 5 minutes, and just having the worst of times. And all that while I was like, because I knew I had work in the morning, and also I'd arranged to see a family member in the afternoon, I just kept on waking up like thinking like, how am I gonna do this, feeling the way that I felt. It was really weird. Like, I was dreaming or hallucinating or whatever that I'd like forgot how to work. I was like panicking on like how I was gonna get into work and like set up the coffee, and like I was hallucinating these really weird images that like everything was steam powered, like turning everything on was like this really overly complex, like Back to the Future, Doc Brown ice machine kind of complexity. Iced tea? For like every task, and I just couldn't make sense of anything, and it was really, really weird. And then I had another dream hallucination thought that I'd like been into work, done my shift, and I woke up like all relaxed, but it was still pitch black outside, so I obviously hadn't been to work yet. I woke up on Wednesday morning feeling absolutely shite, and went into work. I managed an hour. I managed to work an hour, and I'm glad I only worked an hour because I came home and I just slept. Like, my throat was really sore. I felt really sensitive, like I just needed sleep. So I went to bed and I slept for 4 or 5 hours. And then when I woke up, I actually felt okay-ish. Like, I actually felt all right. Like, my sore throat had completely gone with it. Like, I slept for 5 hours and my sore throat was gone, but I still felt sensitive and hot and cold. I could still tell that something was wrong, but I felt miles better than how I'd felt. So then Wednesday, same story. I just slept all day, chilled out, didn't eat anything, wasn't hungry, and then went to bed Wednesday night, had a much better night's sleep, still tossing and turning, but much better than the night before. And then woke up on Thursday morning with an intense splitting pain in my right side, like here. So I did what anybody would do. I ignored it and I decided to go back to sleep. And I fell asleep for a couple of hours again, woke up, the pain was still there. So I had a bath, the pain went away a little bit, like not much, but like the pain started to subside. Then I went to sleep again. And then when I woke up, I was the hottest I have ever felt in my entire life. Like I was dripping in sweat, completely naked, sat on my sofa over there, like thinking, what the fuck is going on? So at that point, I decided to call the hospital. So I called 111, they advised me to go and speak to my GP. I went and spoke to my GP, I had a temperature of 38.5, which was, yeah, I was very, very hot. The GP told me that I need to go to hospital. So then, but I had to go home and pack a bag and that kind of stuff. So I went home, packed a bag, and then waited. Bear in mind, I got out of the GP at 5:30, and then I did not get a call from the hospital to tell me to go in until 10:30. Like me and Jenny had fallen asleep. I'd left my phone on ring, and we were just waiting for a call that, in all honesty, I expected to come in the morning. So we just fell asleep. Anyway, I got the call at 10:30. I was in hospital by 11. They took bloods, they poked my belly, and they put me on some fluids. They put a thing in my arm, they put my wristbands on, like they did all that jazz. And I went to sleep. In the night, my temperature was kind of rising and dropping. I had another 38 in the middle of the night. And then when I woke up in the morning, I had a temperature of about 37. And then that's when they came to me with my bloods and they told me that there was inflammation in my blood. At that point, I was still feeling mega crap, like I was still feeling so unwell, but the pain had actually subsided quite a bit. When you have appendicitis, that can potentially mean that it's, because when it bursts, a lot of the pain subsides. So that could have potentially been the reason why the pain had subsided. And the guy came in, and based on the fact that I had infection, or I had signs of infection in my blood, he wanted to take me straight into theatre to take out my appendicitis, to take out my appendix. I straight up refused surgery straight off the bat. I had this intuitive gut feeling that like I didn't need surgery. I've never had surgery before in my life, touch wood. Although I felt bad, I didn't feel like the surgery was necessary. There was a risk that I could have been out for 6 to 8 weeks had I had surgery. I also would have had the potential to have a weak spot for hernias, and obviously that's right by my large intestine. Like that's you know, I was creating a chink in my armour, as it were, for hernias to start popping up. And like I said, it would have knocked me out of work for like 6 to 8 weeks had the surgery been complicated, and I just didn't feel like it was necessary. I just intuitively knew I didn't need to be cut open. So I asked for a CT scan. I went for a CT scan, which was really cool, by the way. They put you in this like big machine, like an MRI, but it's not an MRI, but it looks the same, that big kind of ring, and you go through the middle. Lay on my back, I have my arms up like this. They put a cable into my cannula. They put a cable into my cannula, or like a pipe into my cannula, and then they injected me with this liquid. And they warned me about it before. They said it's going to feel like you're going to piss yourself, but you're not going to piss. My whole body went like really, really warm, like from my head to my toes. I felt it first in my throat, like my throat went really warm, and then my whole body just had this like massive hot flush. It was awesome. I wouldn't recommend it recreationally, but it was awesome. So the results of the CT scan showed that my appendix was inflamed, but it hadn't ruptured, and it didn't look like there was any nasty infection surrounding my appendix. So at that point, I made the call that I definitely wasn't having surgery, and that I was going to take a course of antibiotics. So I had the antibiotics, and they were IV antibiotics. They went straight into my bloodstream. I had the first one on Friday morning, and that was absolutely fine, like absolutely fine. And then I had the second one at about 9 o'clock Friday evening, and that one didn't go as well. So I've already spoke to the hospital about this, like, everything's absolutely fine. The hospital apologised, like, everything's fine. But the first nurse, or whatever they're called, the people that injected it, the first person that did it stressed the importance of that the antibiotics needed to go in slowly, like really, really slowly, so that there wasn't like a nasty reaction in the body, and so that the body accepted the antibiotics. And, you know, he sat by my side for about 3 or 4 minutes, just slowly injecting these antibiotics, like really, really slowly. And then he also then set up a drip of antibiotics, and he also set that really slowly. Now, I just thought he was being overly cautious. Obviously, I have no medical experience at all on my side, so I had no idea what was going on. I just trusted the doctors and trusted the nurses. But then the lady that came around and did it at 9 o'clock kind of like did a really slapdash job, which, like I said, spoke to the NHS about. They've apologised. The nurse is going to be put on more training. But she just like straight up, just straight in. And then she set my drip to like 120 beats per minute. It was like it was just dripping really fucking fast. After about 5 or 10 minutes of like, after having this like needle like this big full of antibiotics just straight into my bloodstream, and then this drip going like a Swedish House Mafia DMB rave, I started to have a reaction. At first I noticed that my chin was itching, and then I had a really nasty taste at the back of my throat, and then my chest went really tight, like I was struggling to breathe, and I was coughing my guts up. And at that point I was like, this is an anaphylactic reaction. Like, I'm definitely having some kind of reaction to something. So I called the nurse, or like I pressed the emergency button, because at this point I was freaking out. Like, I was really freaking out. Like, I felt lightheaded, I felt dizzy, I couldn't breathe very well, my chin was itching, I was coughing my guts up. Like, I was not a happy boy. So I pressed the alarm, the nurse came, I explained everything that I've just explained to you, and she said, you had indigestion. Bitch, I haven't eaten in 3 days. And I was like, this is not indigestion. Like, this is not indigestion, I'm having a reaction. So she was like, lift up your top. So I lifted up my top to show her my chest, and she was like, no rash, no reaction. And I was like, my chin's itching, my mouth is filling with saliva, I've got a tight chest, and I'm coughing. Those are all the signs of a reaction, like all of them. So they said they'd get a doctor, but this was at like 10 o'clock at night. The hospital was on night staff, you know, they got half the amount of staff that they normally have, and I didn't see anybody. But after about half an hour of coughing my guts up and thinking I was gonna die, in the end I was okay. And they moved me out of the surgical ward into another ward where I was gonna spend the night. So again, nothing really to report there. I went to bed, I was woke up at 6 o'clock with my 3rd course of antibiotics. That nurse did it the same as the first nurse, and everything was absolutely fine. I didn't have a reaction, but I was shitting myself about having another course of antibiotics. The nurse came around at 10:30. By this point, the antibiotics had clearly kicked in. I wasn't in as much pain anymore, and they sent me home. That was it, they sent me home. I left hospital at about 10:30 on Saturday. I spent 2 nights in the hospital, had a course of antibiotics, a CT scan, what felt like a near-death experience, and a whole lot of fun. I did not have much fun. So, and then I came home, and they gave me a 1-week course of antibiotics and a doctor's note for 2 weeks off work, and the advice to rest. So I came home, and obviously with it being a gut, bowel, appendix infection down there, I knew that I couldn't just jump back into my usual diet. I had to cut out sugar, carbohydrates, dairy, fats, some fats, coffee, juice, everything. Like, I had to cut out so much food. For the first 3 days, all I had was a fruit juice. All I was having was water and juice, pretty much, for like 2 or 3 days. And then I started to have some smoothies. I started to have like banana and oat milk with avocado, a dash of honey, and just bits like that. When I say sugar, I mean like processed sugar. And yeah, for about a week, that's kind of all I did, was just have smoothies, coconut yogurt, fruit, juice, and that was about it. So it was a pretty shit week. But look, I got through it. I got through the course of antibiotics. They made me feel like absolute crap. I didn't want to do anything for a week. I've pretty much stayed in the house. I've pretty much stayed home for like 2 weeks, just actually over 2 weeks since I left work on that Wednesday. Bar going to the hospital, popping to the shops, and maybe going out for the odd hour just to get some fresh air. I haven't left the house. I'm back to work tomorrow on Monday. You'll see this Sunday. I'm back to work tomorrow on Monday. And I'm feeling good. I'm feeling bruised. I'm feeling shaken. I've got cabin fever like I've never had before. I've been absolutely smashing Warzone like never before. And yeah, I'm kind of on the road to recovery. I had my first meal out yesterday, which was pretty nice. I went out and had some like rice and beans and chicken at this Portuguese grill up the road, which was absolutely insane, by the way. And yeah, life is kind of getting a little bit back to normal. I'm gonna leave the house now and I'm gonna go and get my first coffee. I had a coffee here yesterday. It made me feel fine, so I'm gonna go and get a coffee this morning. I'm gonna make my smoothie, and life continues. You know, I'm lucky that the appendicitis wasn't severe. I'm lucky it wasn't complicated. I'm lucky it didn't rupture, and it's changed my diet, definitely. I had a tiny piece of chocolate yesterday and just was not interested in the slightest. I had a juice the other day, was not bothered in the slightest. Like, it's changed my palate. I'm, as of right now, intending to be sober for quite a while. I don't plan on drinking any alcohol for quite a while, if ever. I'm not sure yet. I'm gonna take it as it comes, but right now, don't want to touch alcohol. And not really interested in kind of having processed foods or like shitty takeaways or anything like that anymore. It's definitely opened my mind a little bit to what I'm putting into my body and how I'm looking after my body, and also the fact that I haven't had my appendix removed. I am potentially vulnerable to having appendicitis again, which means that I need to make sure that my body is capable of looking after itself and my immune system is good. And yeah, I just need to make sure that I'm looking after my body to make sure that this doesn't happen again, because quite frankly, I can't afford it to happen again. So yeah, that's it. That is my appendicitis story. This is going to be a little bit of a long video, but yeah, I thought I'd let you know where I've been. Fingers crossed we'll get back to our regularly scheduled shit show as of next week. I've got a very busy week coming up. I'm working 5 days next week. I've got another day of doing a little bit of other work away from my normal job, and yeah, I've got a very, very, very busy week coming up, so need to make sure that I am prepared for that. It's gonna be a little bit of a snap back to reality after being in bed or at my desk for 2 weeks, but we'll be fine. We'll get back, we'll be good, and yeah, I will, fingers crossed, be making a video next week. That's all I have to say to you. Thanks for watching. Bye. That was a bit depressing, wasn't it?